Hey there, readers and storytellers, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Story Unfolding, a show about changing the world through creativity, ingenuity, and intellectual discourse. We share meaningful conversations with creators, creatives, and dreamers who take it upon themselves to make a difference in the world. We have an influence on the world around us, regardless of our intent. The only way forward is by confronting the hard truths, asking the tough questions, and letting your voice be heard. We are better together each day with our human story unfolding. Now, I am pleased to have Katharine Wibell on with me today. Katharine Wibell's lifelong interest in mythology includes epic poetry like the Odyssey, Ramayana, man, I knew I was going to mess that up, Beowulf, and I am not going to get that pronunciation correct. I will have you just jump on, Katharine. How do you say that?
Nibelungenlied, yes, it is.
Nibelungenlied. Okay, so I totally messed up that intro for you, but she is an author, she's an artist, she has an amazing dog, she lives in Roswell, Georgia, and her first literary works blend her knowledge of the animal world with the world of high fantasy. So Katharine, I apologize for that muffed intro, but thank you so much for joining me. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you said, I'm a fantasy author of several different series. I write for different age groups. So I have a young adult, new adult, and adult series, depending on what kind of age bracket you prefer. And kind of like you were saying, I do weave a lot of mythology from all different mythos around the world into my storytelling. And my love of animals does reoccur throughout the books as well in different ways. So it's just fun. And I also am an artist as well. So you can kind of see my love of animals since I do a lot of pet portraiture that way. But today we're talking about books.
And we talk about it all here. So that's wonderful. So just real quick though, your interest in animals. So have you worked with animals before?
Yes, in many different facets. One of my majors in college was psychology with the emphasis in animal behavior. I always wanted to be a Dr. Dolittle and talk to the animals. Wow. Since then, I've been a licensed wildlife rehabilitator for the state of Georgia. I've interned at different zoos and done internships with dog training, and I just love to work and be around with different animals in different facets.
That's wonderful. So Roswell, Georgia, is that down in the South or where is that?
It is a little above Atlanta. So we're technically the suburbs, but we're closer to the mountain side of Georgia to the north. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I lived in Columbus for a little while. So I'm a huge Disney nerd. So I always went south down to Disney. Cool. I went up to Atlanta once for a baseball game, and another time I went up to Helen, Georgia. Oh, yes. I love it there because I was stationed in Germany for a while. So going to that little Bavarian village in the, what mountains is it?
We're in the kind of the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Yeah, the Blue Ridge Mountains is really cool. It was unworldly to see that in Georgia. But okay, so let's jump in. Let's get off of that topic and jump into your book. So projects, I know I asked you for those of you watching, I do a written interview portion with my authors before I bring them onto the video. So I have a lot of information about them beforehand, and that will all be available on my website, michaelcamarillo.books.com/blog. Katharine's is either up or scheduled to be up this month. Don't quote me, it will be in the show notes down below. But I asked her a question about what is her current project, and I know she said that she does many things at once. So tell us about that, Katharine.
Oh yeah, I'm one of those authors that I don't advise to follow what I do, but I am kind of producing or publishing 2 different series simultaneously. One of which is my young adult portal fantasy adventure series. It's fun. Again, this one deals with all the fantastical creatures, everything from the Fae to dragons to sorcerers. And that series is called the Jed Chronicles. And the first one is the 12 Tasks. So I have 2 of those released, and the third one slotted, we'll see how this goes, toward late this fall, but we will cross our fingers and hope that goes along accordingly. And in the meantime, I'm also releasing a novella series for adults. It's called The Guardian Speaker, and this is a dark Nordic mythology, so a Viking fantasy. And I have 6 released. The seventh will come later this summer, and I will also be releasing a box set format and omnibus, so a collection of the first 4, since they're novellas and they're small, the first 4 bundled together in a print version later this summer as well. So a lot going on with that series.
Wow.
And both of them are fun because I'm dealing with, one's with a multiverse for the young adult, and the other one is, again, Nordic mythology. So there's the 9 realms in and around Yggdrasil, the world tree, and it's just a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing. I want to read all of them. But this is a good opportunity. You do have a promo coming up, right, for this series?
I do, and it will be not this Friday, but next Friday. So let me go. There's my calendar. It'll be June 17th through the 21st. I'll actually have the first volume. So the Guardian Speaker Volume 1 will be free for a limited time. So if anybody is curious about that and uses Kindle, you can get it for free and check it out and see if you like the series. I hope you do. I love Norse mythology, so you know, it is a passion of mine. But like I said, it'll be free for 5 days later on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I will definitely jump on that. So you have to send me a reminder. I'll set it, have my wife set it on my phone or something. Is there a age limit for your writing? Like, do you tend to write for a certain age?
For me, well, each of my series is kind of geared to a different age bracket. And I think it's because I want all readers of different ages to be able to enjoy high fantasy and epic lore and myth. And so some of my story series, like my Nordic one, is aimed at adults because Nordic mythology is very dark, very gritty, and I tended to write that series as a little more grimdark style, so that was catered more toward adults. I have a shifter series called the Incarn Saga, the first one being Asara's Claws. That's new adult. It is still pretty dark and gritty since it's war-based, but not nearly as much as the Guardian Speaker. But then again, I want young people to enjoy fantasy and get into reading as well. So my young adult series, the Jed Chronicles, starting off with the 12 Tasks, that's just a fun fantasy. It's a lot lighthearted, can be categorized as clean fantasy, if you've heard that term before, but it's just fun. And I hope people just enjoy the journey on that one.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to checking it out. And for those of you who are hearing Jed, remember it's Nordic. So there is a D before that J, D-J-E-D. So
actually, you're close. Jed is actually Egyptian mythology, but yeah, it is
D-J-E-D.
Okay. Yeah, again, I pull from different mythos. So that one, because it's all around the world, it was inspired a little bit by Egypt mythology on that one as well.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think we talked about this in a pre-interview that I was an archaeology major, so you just stumped me on something. But I was more Roman. I was Roman in the Hellenistic Greek area, so I know Egypt had a play in there, but I guess you got me on that one.
well, recently I went to see a museum exhibit with about Egypt, and there was a whole room kind of recreated to look like one of the burial tombs. And the concept of the Jed pillar ties in to the afterlife and the crossing over process and the supporting of the universe. And so they had all different images of the Jed pillar. And I just took my video camera and I was just doing a 360 trying to film them all because I was just like, this is my inspiration.
That's amazing. Yeah, I actually, I went to the Anthropology Museum in Mexico City a couple of weeks ago. And I wanted to do the same exact thing, but we were rushing through. I was like trying to take as many pictures and videos as possible because a lot of mine will draw on different mythos as well and historical events. So me being an archaeologist and anthropologist, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And this is all my inspiration. But yeah, I just couldn't get it all. There was just so much. But I'm curious. So you're writing, you write about a lot of different mythos, and knowing, what I do about it, a lot of them do rely on animals as symbology and for various purposes. So what came first for you, the chicken or the egg? Was it your love of animals or your love of mythology?
I think as for the writing, it was definitely the love of mythology first. But with that said, I am drawn to different kind of, especially creatures and the beast and those kind of animals. versus more the human storylines and the heroes and the gods of different lore. So anytime I got to hear like a mythological creature, I was highly interested in that. And so because of that, I became very familiar with all different kinds of mythos. And so when I was starting off my writing career with the Incarn Saga, I do use the concept of shapeshifters. They're called therymorphs. And so if you look into the definition of that word, thery and means kind of a animal shifting or the changing, and then morph is changing, and thery is kind of the animal kind of shifting. So therymorph kind of encompassed any creature that can shape shift into an animal form, and by definition that includes vampires, werewolves, etc., so on. But when creating my own mythology, I use that as just a general catch-all for my shapeshifter species, and was able to then pull in some of my background knowledge on animal behavior when creating these beings that turn into animals. So the psychology behind them is in part human and in part what an animal would react or think like in different situations and scenarios.
That's awesome. That's really interesting. That kind of drives us into one of the themes of this channel, where we kind of integrate, or we try and find those ties between fiction writing or whatever it is, our content creation and social change in the real world, things that we see in reality. And I'm curious, because you're talking about all these world building aspects of these different species and different beings. Like, do you feel like writing, maybe just, I know you do epic fantasy and high fantasy, but do you feel like writing books in general can inspire social change?
Oh, definitely. I think in actually all three series at current that I'm working on, I do like to touch on some of the, I guess at this moment, they're a little more generalized topics of social change, but my Incarn Saga deals with a shapeshifter as a main character, and she's drafted in the war and kind of goes from there on, but she's a female in a patriarchal society. So we talk about, gender roles. She is one species when human race is in control, so you have a racial tension there. And then there's also commentary on religion, because therymorphs were polytheistic originally, and then humans brought in monotheism, so you have a religious kind of clash going on as well below the scene. So even though I'm taking you through a very fantasy, war-based fantasy, I'm still kind of doing commentary on different levels of equality and being able to see people who are different from you and being able to accept them and go from there.
I'm curious, was that an intent of yours, or did it just happen by chance as you wrote?
That one I think was intentional, because I, growing up in the South and everything, and the way, unfortunately, the world is at the moment, I felt like there were some things that I just wanted to express in some way. And so, racism, sexism, religious persecution, all that I think are big topics that people need to be aware of and understand. It happens to date, it is happening right now, and we need to learn how to be able to be more accepting with people who are different from ourselves.
I love that concept and that idea, and I think it is, I agree with you that writing has the ability to change cultures. I think it has massive opportunities to shift social norms, because it's really something that I learned in my early journey, and it sounds like you are pretty advanced in your author journey. I would think you've had quite a few books published already, right?
Yes. Well, yes, I'm always learning, so I will never say I'm like there yet, but I'm learning.
Advanced isn't the right word, just more seasoned, more experienced, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty new. I've only had one book published right now, second book coming out soon. But what I experienced with just my first interactions with an editor and my beta readers was, that way people perceive my writing when I did not intend it a certain way. And that's the whole idea behind this channel that I wanted to bring out, that we have an intent on, or we have a impact on people around us. Whatever we do, whatever we put out into the world has an impact, and our intent isn't always conveyed. So I'm trying to give you the opportunity to convey your intent, and also kind of dig in a little deeper into what you were writing and how that could impact others. So that was that. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of go off on a tangent, but I'm curious about just personal experiences for you. Like, how has personal experience kind of influenced your worldview and what you write about, if it has?
Well, yes. Again, kind of growing up in, the South, and I guess I should be very appreciative because I've not necessarily come into some of the contact where a lot of others have of racial disparity. Again, I'm coming from a Caucasian perspective, but growing up and becoming friends with people from all different kind of backgrounds, it is kind of a jarring awareness when, from my point of view, it wasn't as big of an issue early on, and then realizing that no, these issues are very prevalent. They are very impactful to other people coming from different backgrounds and dealing with certain either injustices or just different trials that I would never have expected people needing to or having to go through today, depending on just the fact that they are different from what other people expect from the norm, be it race or orientation, religion, et cetera, so on. So just growing up and coming, awareness that issues that I when I was a child were like, they don't exist anymore, to the point of, no, they definitely do. And I do think that people should be very conscious of all walks of life. And so when you're writing, if you are a person who is writing and trying to touch notes on races or religions or orientations that are not your own, having something like sensitivity readers or something to come on who are people of that population you're trying to touch, to read and make sure they feel represented correctly, is an important thing.
That's a great point. Yeah, I know. So you said in all of your books, is it a female lead?
Currently, yes. Okay. I do have female leads in all of them. And each series touches on different levels of inequality in different kind of scenarios.
Now, are there some main primary male characters that you had to write in there? I'm assuming.
Yes. Well, it's interesting that the Guardian Speaker being based on Nordic myth, my characters, I have only a couple female characters, and most of them are male characters. And kind of similarly to Sarah's Claws, in the beginning, it is very male heavy when I'm writing the series, and then being able to incorporate different kind of women leads, so to speak, as I go along was kind of fun too.
So was that something kind of an adjustment for you to have to learn how to write a male perspective accurately as well?
Hopefully people believe my work accurately. I don't know if I've ever had an issue personally writing that way. My style of writing is a single point of view, though. So I have not had to delve into a main character from a different orientation or gender point of view. So for me, that kind of helped alleviate probably some of that potential issue that could have come along. But I've always grown up being what I would prefer to call myself was a tomboy growing up. So I always had male friends, and even to date, I have a large population of male friends, and I never really felt uncomfortable writing from a different gender.
Okay. Yeah, I know that question has been asked to me a couple times because my main character is female. Well, so mine's complicated because I deal with gender in my stories a lot. So she is female outwardly, but the type of being she is, she chose a gender. So she's really gender non-specific, but outwardly she appears as a female. So a lot of people have asked me, like, how did you write a female and all that? And I kind of had the reverse experience as you. I had a lot of female friends, and I always tended to, just be around females more than, the bunch of dudes. So it was easier for me to kind of convey that. And I have a really strong support network with my wife, who is right there, and I was kind of modeling a lot off of her. So yeah, that goes into that accuracy and kind of that sensitivity a little bit, in terms of, I think that's important. That's a really important point to bring up to, a lot of new authors who may be watching this right now, is there's a lot that you don't know. So
Yes.
you always need to reach out. And I think you brought that up, Catherine, earlier, that, even though you've written a lot and you've published a lot, you're saying, you're not a self-professed like expert.
Oh no, definitely not.
So I think that's something to definitely humble yourself when you are writing, when you're doing anything publicly. We kind of talked on this some, but I want to dig into a little more about, to what extent do you think fiction can influence maybe our world? And specifically for me, it's science and technology because I'm sci-fi, but you do mythology and fantasy. So I'm curious, just to what extent do you think fiction can impact just development in the world?
Well, I mean, as a social development, as we were been talking thus far, is anytime you're kind of doing a shout out for social change or an awareness, even subtly, that can, bring people to a new awareness and kind of inspire them to take action if there is an issue. And when you're talking about fantasy in general, yeah, you can point out flaws in systems of government. You can point out flaws in the way we view each other, or as you probably more in the sci-fi aspect of it. But you can, if you see that there is a area that will need change or adjustment or improvement when it comes to something like technology, you can, find different ways to broach that topic through writing and allow people to start thinking about it. And even if you may not have the answer, it might inspire someone else to resolve the problem going down the line.
Yeah, I think it's all about changing that perspective, right? The smallest thing can make you question your reality or your circumstances. That's what really inspires change. So if you had to pick maybe 1 to 3 major social issues, what would be the most important to you?
Well, kind of the things that reoccur throughout my thing is equality. So, be it equality, oh my God, probably 4, but like, I think the biggest ones right now are obviously equality with race and sexual orientation, probably / gender, depending on how people want to break it up, and being able to accept people who believe a different way than you do in the sense of religion, or even if you're non-religious, being able to accept someone who may have a very different outlook or opinion than you and still be able to see them as they are people. Religion in general has usually each religion, at least from my opinion, they're all talking about how we can be the best person we can be. How can we, treat other people justly? And even though how it's wrapped and strung up with bows may be different, but the core of religion has a lot of very similarities throughout. And if we're able to look at the similarities and understand the individual, I think we would be better off. So for me, it's all about equality in different ways.
Okay, yeah, I love that. I agree with you with the religious component. I know that's a huge theme in my storytelling because I was raised Catholic, but now I'm agnostic. We teach our daughter about various religions. We celebrate, I've had her celebrate Ramadan with me. We've done various different, religious celebrations throughout the year just to broaden her understanding and awareness, and giving her the opportunity to say, hey, you can pick whatever you want. And I think that helps. We're trying to, kind of give her that lived experience of acceptance and being able to embrace others and understand those similarities that you're talking about, because it is all about finding purpose and meaning and trying to be the best person you can be and treat the others as best as you can. So yeah, I think that's wonderful. But with your kind of Nordic centric writing, is there room for you to really broach, like, I don't know, I'm not a Nordic expert, I don't know anything about it, I watch a lot of Avengers, but is there room, yeah, is there room for you to really broach religious and race like topics or themes in that?
Yeah, so my Guardian speaker thing, and going back to the concept of sensitivity readers, being based on people during the Viking era and Norse mythology, both are very grim, dark, and have some unpleasant aspects historically with them. So I do talk and start out with the topic of slavery, and one of the main characters is brought in from another race as a slave and is freed early on, but it starts allowing readers to go through from the main character's perspective as she slowly starts questioning the right and wrongness of how she's been raised throughout her whole life. But I did need to kind of go through some different sensitivity readers just to make sure the way I was trying to approach this concept, because slavery is a very poignant and touchy topic, and make sure I did it okay where no one would be, you know, offended. So, you know, I do try to talk about harder subjects with my writing. I don't like to skirt around them, but I also want to make sure everybody's okay and have those warnings out there saying, hey, this is for adults. It does have some very grim topics and some grittier topics and harsher topics to go along with it, including slavery.
Good to know. I think that's amazing, and I'm really excited to check out some of your stories. Now, I will be posting this on a podcast in a to be determined time, but for now it is up on YouTube. So those who are watching, you can see behind Katharine's head. For those of you not watching, describe what is back there, because I see a whole bunch of weapons and I think they look really cool and I want to know more.
Okay, well, going back to, like you said, I'm Nordophile. I think that's like, so Tolkien used that term at one point. Nordophile, someone who loves Nordic mythology and etc. so on. So I have been for a number of years collecting replicas of different Viking, some of them are weaponry, others are different other artifacts. So behind me, I have like swords and the sax dagger and right now a throwing axe on one side. On the other side, for my COVID fun thing, I built myself a round shield. So I have helmets and drinking horns all around my office. It's kind of fun to have them in and around here because, again, especially when I'm writing that series, it kind of is that extra inspiration. And, you know, if I ever need a break, I can take one of my swords out there and kind of go through the motions and see how. That
was going to be my next question. Do you practice using these?
Right now I'm in a very small apartment, so I haven't really been able to swing a sword around lately, but I have come in contact with one of the biggest sword masters in the US, and hope to start working with him this summer on actual swordsmanship skills.
Oh, that's amazing. So we'll have to bring you back on to teach us how to build a round shield and how to use some of your weapons. That sounds awesome. I know I do have another travel channel that I know you mentioned to me that you haven't really had the opportunity to travel, but you want to go to Scandinavia to reinforce this learning. If you get out there, hit me up. Let me help you out. I'll help you get out there, and then we can get you on the channel and you can show us some of this awesome weaponry that you got. Now, before we close out, tell everyone a little bit more about where we can find you. Is there any way they can mention you, like hashtag or anything that they can reach you directly? And then a final thing about your promo, just so everyone remembers.
Okay, well, right now I am an author who's exclusive currently on Amazon. So all my books are in ebook form through Kindle and Kindle Unlimited, and I have paperback and hardcovers also available on Amazon for different books in my series. You can find me on my website, and through my website, it has links to all my different social media, but my website is www.Katharine, Katharine, Wibell, which is spelled W, I as in ink, B as in boy, ELL, books.com. And you can message me, contact me there. The hashtag I use most often is Katharine E. Wibell. Just easiest for me to find you, but I'm on pretty much every platform you can think of, from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest. So I'm around. You can probably find me, and I love talking with new readers, so give me a shout out. And in regards to my promo, so I'm going back to glance at my planner. I will be releasing The Guardian Speaker Volume 1 for free for 5 days, starting June 17th and ending June 21st of this year. So if you're interested, you can check it out.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was very fun talking to you, and I felt like I was taken out into Scandinavia today. So it was a nice reprieve from the sunny Mexican weather right now.
Well, I'm jealous about that. That sounds lovely too.
Well, thank you so much for having us, and I hope to have you again soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, and all of you, thank you for listening. All those notes and Katharine's links will be down below. Click subscribe if you liked what you heard today, and check out some of my other author interviews. And that's all for today. Read more and write mindfully.